Good evening to our listening and viewing public. We apologize for the late start. We had some technical difficulty, but nevertheless, we are here and we welcome everyone to this World Food Day panel discussion. Today, we are discussing a very important component of agriculture, which speaks of food, water, environment, and life. This panel discussion is part of the World Food Day celebration, a celebration that is promoting healthy diet, healthy eating, and nutrition for all. So part of our World Food Day activity is this panel discussion, and I want to take this opportunity to introduce my panelists. I will start with the Permanent Secretary of Agriculture, of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, Mr. Reginald Savre. Mr. Reginald Savre is an agribusiness specialist. He's a lover of agriculture, and we welcome him to this panel discussion. The Permanent Secretary will speak on food, production, and the whole aspect of how he sees the advancement and the productivity and how we move towards reaching $700 million in 2030. And I also want to take this opportunity to welcome and introduce Mr. Nicholas Shanks Esprit. He's the Special Project Coordinator in the Ministry of Agriculture. Next to him is Mr. Nigel Have. He is a technician in the Forestry Department, very knowledgeable in the protection of rivers, and we welcome him to be part of this panel discussion. Mr. Have will speak on better citizen behavior and the responsibility that they have in protecting rivers, and he'll also speak on safeguarding watersheds. And my good friend Shanks will speak on the importance of water as a resource in Dominica, and he'll also speak about the supply and distribution and water access, the affordability, the investment, and irrigation. And lastly, the queen among us, Ms. Tarifa Loda, who is the program coordinator for the DRM project for FAO Dominica. We welcome her, and she will speak on the whole issue of food availability, food security, and the importance of healthy diets, and we'll touch collectively, we'll all speak about the issues of water is life and how we combat NCDs. And so let me welcome my panelists and welcome the viewers. We appreciate you taking time to be with us to speak about this very important topic. Water is life, water is food. And so, as we say, water is essential for everything that we do. If you take a moment to think of the importance of water, we need water for our daily existence. Water provides food in terms of plants, the crops that we eat. It provides the protein and the meat that we eat every day, and also recreation in terms of the marine space. And so it's very important for us to acknowledge the importance of water. So it's not about me, it's about the panelists, and I want the panelists to dominate the topic. So I will call on Mr. Nigel Have of the Forestry Division to speak to you about the whole environmental protection in Dominica rivers, and basically what would be your role in assisting in that, your responsibility as a citizen in protecting our rivers. As the theme suggests, water is life. So, Mr. Have, welcome.
Yeah, I would like to say, lovely good evening to all. Thanks for having me. Once again, I'm Nigel Have from the Forestry Department. And of course, the forestry have been playing a significant role in terms of the protection of the watershed. Just to speak about how important we are playing, the role that we have been engaged in a sustainable management project. sponsored by the Partnership Initiative for Sustainable Land Management, that is the PISLM project. And one of their components is strengthening the watershed, which is very important. So recently, since the impact by Hurricane Maria, we have been engaging restoration of degraded land and forested areas, especially the riparian forests, and alongside the rivers. We will engage in a few areas such as Battley, Kulibistri, and Laplin. Close to over 10 to 15,000 plants were distributed, and that's also agroforestry species. And that was to close the or limit the mitigation impact of harmful agriculture practices. And of course, we have set up various nurseries around the island, strategic areas, so to speak. And the main thing, of course, is to make sure that we can reach various farmers. We do have various ranges also: the northern range, the southern range, the eastern range, and the central range. Their role, of course, to ensure that we protect the forests, protect the rivers, and ensure that the laws are being enforced. And again, we have planted, as I mentioned earlier, 10 to 15,000 plants, and we want to encourage the citizens that bad practices such as illegal logging, failing cutting may impact the significant role we are trying to play into limiting the flooding and such other roads the river may flow.
Okay, so let us be interactive. In terms of government role, you mentioned the role that the forestry division is doing, planting the trees. Mm-hmm. I know you have some legislative framework that prevents people from doing certain practices. Speak to the government's responsibility in terms of the legislative framework and what we are doing to prevent these actions.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have the various ranges, the northern range, southern, the four different ranges, and their main role are to enforce the laws. And that's what we have been trying to encourage for a number of years. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Esprit, you feel free to.
I have a question. You mentioned bad agricultural practice. I would like you to elucidate a bit on.
Yeah, when we say
what would constitute a bad agricultural practice?
When we say bad practice, meaning that alongside the rivers, we do see a lot of illegal clearing of the forests and slash and burn, which will impact the soil and the quality, and whenever the water, just rainfall, it may cause the topsoil to wash out. So that's where we have been trying to do the reforestation program to see how we could, especially agroforestry species, to see how we could limit those practices.
Okay, so I think part of it as well is how we mitigate against climate change. Climate change is real, and so we have that fundamental responsibility to see how we mitigate against climate change and the pollution of our rivers. This is something that is very important for us as well. But I want to go to Mr. Esprit, that will really speak to us about the water and the importance of water as a resource for Dominica. Not only for Dominica, but for the world. But he will focus on the Dominica context and really speak to us about why water is important for life and what is the role. And I must say, Mr. Esprit worked with the water company Dowasco for 15 years or more, 17 years. and so he would have a vast experience in water supply and water distribution. So speak to us about it.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening to all. Thanks for having me. Well, we have all heard the saying, water is life. And the truth is, water is the most important compound known to man, second only to oxygen. And it is involved in every and anything that you can think of. What I mean by that is that, for instance, the surface of the earth is made up of 71% of the surface of the earth is covered in water. The sad thing for humanity, though, is that out of that 71%, only 6% is fresh water, if you will. The rest is salt and lakes and oceans and so on. Out of that 6% fresh water, we, the human beings on earth, and not mostly Dominica because we have lots of fresh water still available to us in Dominica, but the world only captures about 10% of that 5%. And that's the difficulty that the world is facing with water. Fortunately for us in Dominica, we still boast of our 365 rivers. And the importance of water to us is that for us, for instance, our water come from the mountain, and you heard the forestry officer. That's why forestry tends to protect the catchment. The catchment area is the area where a river starts off, and it comes down to us, and we use it for our daily chores, by Duasco, for instance, and captures that water from the catchment area and distributes to people's home. We all know what we use the water to do. And in the context of agriculture, we also capture that water for irrigation purposes. Now, no plant or no human being or no life on earth can sustain itself without water. So the human body, for instance, is made up of 60% water. So at no stage in your life you could be without water, and no plant or living thing can sustain itself without water or survive without water. I think it is said that a human being cannot go more than 5 days without water, 6 days without water. If you don't consume any water within 6 days, you will die. The same for plants. We see when we don't give our plants water, they wilt and eventually die. So that is to say how important water is. So if there's no water, there's no life. So that's where the saying, water is life. And for us, what we've tried to do is to ensure that all the citizens get potable water to their home. And we in the Ministry of Agriculture, more importantly, is on a drive to assist farmers and to educate the people how important it is to have irrigation system and how important it is to have water on farms, because our population is not growing, but small as it is, we need to maintain life, and how we maintain life is by feeding the people. And I say that to people when I speak to them before. I say, one thing I'm sure, once there is life, it must take place. How well it takes place is another discussion, and that is to say agriculture, because once you have life, that's human being, say in our context in Dominica, we must eat. And for us to eat, agriculture must help us. Farmers must grow food for us to eat. And even those of us who say we're not eating this, there's something we eat that must be grown. And if we say we're eating fish alone, it must live in the water. That's how important water is. If we say we're eating beef and pork alone, the animals must drink water to stay alive. So that is the context in which how important water is to us. Every single thing that you do, it involves water. When you wake in the morning, when you are a little child, your mother would tell you, go and brush your teeth. You must brush your teeth with water. If you have to make juice, you dilute the concentration with water. And even the juice itself. So when you take an orange and you eat an orange straight from the tree, if you were to do a test, you would see that almost 80% of the orange itself is water and the other substances that the orange took from the soil to make the orange juice. And in that context, you can see how important water is. There's nothing that can happen without water. If you
Thank you, but we will get back to the investment and the supply after, but it is very significant what you mentioned in terms of the importance of water, hygiene as well. We have not spoken about the marine, the ocean, but we will we will touch in that in terms of the tourism and the recreation aspect of that and aquaculture. So we have the permanent secretary that will touch the food part. But it is, what I want to bring to our viewers and listeners, the focus is on fresh water, but we cannot leave out the marine life as well, important for food and recreation, transportation. So I want to turn our discussion, Mr. Esprit gave us the importance of water. He also mentioned water provides food in terms of plant, it provides meat protein, and the whole human aspect. So I want to invite Ms. Loader to speak to us on the nutritional part of not water, but the food that the water provides, and more looking at agriculture and how we produce food to feed the nation in terms of healthy diet. So Ms. Loader.
Good evening. Of course, this discussion is an important one when we speak of food and nutrition security. First and foremost, when we understand food security, we speak of access, availability, utilization, and certainly the status of the respective food. And if we were to relate, we try to understand these concepts. We cannot forget the era that we live in, the need to achieve the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And I just want to stress a bit on the number of goals that are associated with food security, food production, and of course, sustainable livelihoods. Yes, I want to mention zero hunger, goal number 2. Certainly, that is our goal as agriculturists, the need to feed our people, okay? Understanding the different concepts or manipulating the processes that is to achieve food is another discussion. However, our main goal is to feed our people, whether we import or we provide it, which, of course, providing national, that is, food sovereignty is my first attempt. We cannot forget good health, that is goal number 3. That is, eating the right foods, eating quality foods. So many times we import, or we believe that purchasing foods from the supermarket is the best. But not forgetting that the backyard, what we plant in our backyard is important, okay? And we want to relate local food production as the ministry and many other organizations, they have campaigned over the years, eating local, buying local, eat what you grow. And I want to encourage that discussion and encourage us to continue that campaign, because good nutrition will of course support sustainable livelihoods. I want to stress on goal number 6, that speaks of clean water. And my dear colleagues stressed on the importance of planting trees and maintaining the forest. And it relates, of course, to, if we understand the whole water cycle and the importance of relating the forest to water and clean water. I want to also speak of goal number 8, that speaks of economic growth. And that is the importance of, when we speak of small businesses, and of course the importance of the private sector and the public sector and the relationships that we create to ensure that food is available for all. Yes? I want to stress on goal number 10 that speaks of responsible production. Responsible production, that is, of course, as agriculturists, the importance of us, the systems that we create, the systems that we provide our farmers and our other producers. Yes? I want to stress on goal number 14 that speaks of life below water. And we cannot forget our fishers. They survive on the sea. They survive on the marine space. And not just the fishers, but everybody who survives, who their livelihood is depending on the marine space. We cannot forget, of course, and I will just end, the life on land. The relationship between, of course, what the trees, the animals, the relationship, of course, of the ridge to the reef. We cannot forget that. And the last one, partnership. We are here because we are partnering with one another. Yes, different organizations. We are partnering with regards to accessing finance to support government mandates and, of course, programs. We are partnering when we, of course, support each other through the respective programs to achieve the one goal, which is surviving and, of course, achieving this SDGs. And I cannot not say that food, water, environment, and life, that should be everybody's goal. That should be what we call our national consciousness. And just to give some persons homework, I want to highlight that we should go back looking at the 4 dragon countries, that is, of the East. How they have achieved that name for themselves, because they went back and they looked at the production systems, and they have actually became the 4 giants, which include China currently. But let us look at the 4 giants, or we call them the 4 tigers of Asia. That is Taiwan, Singapore, I have it, South Korea, and Hong Kong. Now including China. So let us look at their systems as Dominicans, and we are celebrating 45. So let us look at their systems, and let us gain some good principles, some good concepts from them in achieving our goal.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Lola. At this time, I want to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister, Mr. Roland Royer, for joining us. We welcome you, sir. And we also have our technical officers and team leaders also, so we want to acknowledge them in supporting the process. So, Permanent Secretary, I want to invite you to speak to us on food and the ministry role in the production of food, but not only the production of food, because we can produce unhealthy foods as well. So what is the ministry role that you lead in producing healthy foods? I want to classify it as being producing healthy foods for the population. So I invite you to speak to us on the accessibility, affordability, and the production, and speak about the whole productivity and the ministry role in producing food. So welcome, Permanent Secretary.
Thank you, Ryan. Good night, everyone. We just recognize Honorable Minister Roy with us here tonight. As a ministry, we have hinged ourselves on setting a goal to allow the agricultural sector, to produce $700 million to GDP by 2030. Stemming from this wider mandate at a national level, we now have to trickle down and find ways and strategies to actually get farmers and fishers and agro-processors to be engaged in actual food production. Food production for us is critical. Dominica is well endowed with the landscapes for producing food. We have an abundance of water. We also have good fertile soil, being a volcanic island. But one of the things is that here in Dominica, it is a challenge actually growing food here. And what has happened over the years is that Dominica has always focused on monoculture, producing one type of commodity. And that stems back to our tradition of being a country that was colonized. And we were basically a food factory or an agricultural product factory for a metropole or one of the imperial countries in the world, knowing that we were under the British. So over the years, you will find that we have produced food. We produce food, but most of our food was produced to feed somebody else outside of Dominica. So over the years, we have what you call developed a attitude towards where the most of the food that we eat is coming from outside. We develop a taste for outside food, while we have a very rich tradition of actually growing our local food. So at the ministry, our challenge here is to look at how do we produce food and we get food available to the common individuals. And on the flip side, how do we encourage our people to actually get involved in the production of food? So we are on a strategy of growing what we eat and eating what we grow. We need to look at ourselves today, look at what we have done in bananas, in vanilla, in cocoa, in coffee, in citrus over these years, and look at how we can take the best practices out of our tradition and how we can inculcate that into modern day production of food. So for us, the challenge is how do we overcome the road issue, the road access issue? How do we overcome the water access to farms so that we can produce food? These are the kind of things that are fronting farmers now. And as we have an aging farming population, how do we encourage young people to get excited about producing food and being involved in that? So as part of our overall strategy to actually increase the contribution of agriculture to the economy of Dominica, we are targeting young people, we're targeting fishers, farmers, agro-processors, and we're making a carry-on call to get people engaged more in the production of food here. And that will help us to overcome a major problem we have where we are, like last year, we actually imported over $28 million of food. And that is the fresh food. That doesn't talk about biscuits and cookies and the other juices that is imported. We're talking about chicken, raw chicken, fresh fish, and the other canned fish and other salted fish that we think we have over 17 million just from fish and meat and chicken that we are actually importing into Dominica. So the opportunity here lies now for us to actually convert some of that food we are importing into actual production on the ground, and we're hoping as a ministry we'll be able to encourage farmers and young people to get involved in producing food for us so we can reduce our food import bill.
Thank you, Permanent Secretary. Later on, I want us to speak about the Eat Local and Grow What You Eat campaign. For, as I always say, agriculture is the best culture. So we need to take that up again to discuss that further. I also want us to speak about the relationship between Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health, the school feeding program. So how we build that relationship with other ministries. It's not a Ministry of Agriculture responsibility alone in providing healthy food, so we need to speak about that. But I want to go back to Nigel and to engage you in how you see the citizen. What is the responsibility of the citizen? We know we have behavioral issues. As a forester, what advice and how would you advise farmers, fisher folks, not much fisher folks, but people engaged in aquaculture in terms of their practices? What behavioral issues that you have witnessing, you have experiencing?
Watershed, of course, is the best land use practice to protect and improve the water quality. And of course, the impact, the people that can have the most impact from that is people itself that are in the farm itself. So we have been trying recently to try to train a lot of people, community, to improve the community livelihood through training, education, and of course, the most important thing I'll stress on that, to engage them in the activities. So recently we have been trying to purchase wildling seedlings from the nurseries, various private nurseries, to help them come on board with our drive to try to prevent illegal practices. So the citizen now, the practice, the role they play is very important, which may, as previously mentioned from my colleague there, the ridge to the reef. So whatever role they may play, it will always impact our livelihood. So our citizens, we help them, we try to encourage them to adhere to the various laws, adhere to the various practices encouraged by the team leaders from agriculture, forestry, health sector. We have various environmental programs on radios. We visit schools up to yesterday, earlier today, we had a group of foresters trying to restore the Ripon Forest alongside the river near the Pioneer Primary School. So we're trying our best to see how we can start from, as mentioned, from the PS, from the young people, from very youth. So if we could adopt, they could adopt that behavior from a very young age, I don't think in the future we will have a very positive impact on our future.
All right. So, Mr. SP, you worked with the water company for a number of 17 years to be exact. In terms of the watershed, the importance of that, and take us from the watershed to the investment required, but more on a irrigation and agricultural context.
Okay. Well, water, in terms of distribution, takes two forms. The first one would be the most important to us, is water to our home. And DOWASCO is charged with that process. And I must say, even in first world developed countries, they cannot boast of what we have achieved in Dominica, thanks to the government of Dominica. So far we have 98.5% potable water to the homes. And potable water really is water that is safe by World Health Organization standard for drinking and using at the home for cooking and so on. And the government has invested significantly to ensure that almost every single citizen water is available to every single citizen in the country. And at one point, we achieved that, but Erica came and then Maria came and it destroyed a few systems, most of which have been replaced. But there are few, maybe 2 little hamlets in Dominica without pipe-borne potable water, which is the same thing. And what I know, the WASCO is working on that, so I give us in Dominica and our government kudos for achieving that goal that even big countries cannot achieve. And moving to the second point of distribution, which is irrigation systems, I must also mention that we are now spending close to $600,000 in repairing irrigation system that existed in Salisbury for the rock vegetable farmers. And I said 600,000, but if we were to build an entire new irrigation system, it would be in the millions. The reason being is, and I always say that, the very thing that makes us, Dominica, beautiful, and people want to visit us, is the very thing that makes it very challenging for investment and development and improvement. And not wanting to deviate, and I just want to give a quick example. For example, in Barbados, if the government would like to build an airport, they would just identify a piece of land and bulldoze. In Dominica, it is completely different. We may have to cut down a few hills, which is what is happening now. And I say that in context to say the same applies for constructing an irrigation system for any farming area. And I see, for instance, the moderator would know that we're working on developing an irrigation system for an area in Granby called Makato. And for us to put a water system there, we would most likely have to put pumps. Now, the price of the pump is one cost. Now, to operate the pumps would be another cost, and it would be a consistent and continual cost. And if you were to do an irrigation system for Makato, for instance, install a pump, install the pipelines, and still pay for energy to run the pump to give water, you can imagine how expensive it would now make production of food for people in Dominica. and then it would start eroding our aim to make food as cheap as possible, so it would be readily available to everybody. And that is the difficulty we face. So when we go out, the minister, I remember when we went out on our trips, we speak of irrigation system and water for the farms, which we know plants cannot grow without water. So yes, we did water. And in some cases, we really get production, but we could have gotten much more out of our plants and our farming if we had proper water system, that is to say irrigations. But it's so expensive. And going back to the topography, in many instances we farm, our major farmings are on the mountains and on the hilltop. And the water actually leaves the hilltop and goes down to the seaside. And it's very difficult for water to, in few areas we can get water on farms. And
I want to ask Mr. Esprit while we at it.
Yes, but I'll come to you, PS. But the notion that we waste water in Dominica or water is wasted. Before we entertain the question by the Permanent Secretary, what would be your response to that?
well, it has to be in context. I mean, if you at your home and you, say for instance, brushing your teeth, and you open the tap and the water just running and you're brushing your teeth, you're wasting water. So that is one form of wasting water. But is in what context? For instance, if you connect your wastewater from your home to your backyard garden, you're making full use of your water.
Right. So we will get back to the responsibility of citizens in terms of preserving and water,
And conserve it.
conserving water. So
I just wanted to ask Mr. Esprit, there's so much rain in Dominica. So what's the issue with water? Because we just as we said, we have good lands, good soil, so we have a lot of rainfall. What can we do?
Yes, so that's another area that we're looking into. That is to say, rainwater harvesting. The thing is, because we always boast of so many rivers, everybody feel you just go to the river, hook a pipe to it, and then pipe it to your home. But we just discuss how difficult that can be and how expensive it is. So it is a drive we have to take in the ministry, the same way we plan how forestry plan to meet with the younger people and instill in them the importance of planting back the trees in the catchment areas to regenerate and to increase the water supply and the water intake. We have to now go to our farmers and start preaching to them and educating them on techniques and the benefits of rainwater harvesting. Because what you have is, the way we get in rain nowadays, you may fill a 2,000-gallon drum in an hour, 2 hours, and then you could maybe use that 2,000 gallons for your farm, maybe over a period of 1 week, and then by the time your supply dwindles, goes low, you may get another shower that may fill it back. But it's also expensive too, because you would have to create the platform to capture the water and then pipe it to your tanks. But the most important part to that would be the capturing of the water. And the water is available, we do get paid for it. It's something we discussed in the ministry itself on a technical level. We need to bring it out and see how much the farmers can buy into it.
So we're talking about storage areas?
Yes.
Storage and access. How do we access the water? The water is there.
Yeah, yes.
But how do we access the water from the rivers?
We also have another technique, but it's less efficient as a pump, electric pump or other pump. We have what we call a ram pump. It's something.
Yes.
So it's something we have to start speaking to farmers. There are farmers who are close to water catchment areas, but their farm is slightly higher. But they can design something called a ram pump to pump the water. But it's very inefficient, but you will still capture the water and so on.
I think what I need to do is to mention to our viewers and listeners, this is not your usual panel discussion. We really want it to be interactive. So for me, this disappointment is that you can call in to ask your question. But our discussion there is it's going to be interactive and things. So PS, I want to bring you in to talk to us about the whole issue of how the ministry is moving forward in achieving that 700 million. The context of reforming human resource and how we do things, and bringing the marine space as well, aquaculture, and the strategy that we have put forward in not only providing food, but how we provide livelihoods for the people in that context. Yeah.
So many people, moderator, considers Dominica as the food basket of the Caribbean. And the question is, if we are the food basket of the Caribbean, why is it we importing $28 million worth of actually fresh commodities, white potatoes and fish and poultry? So as part of the strategy of the ministry is the first thing we spend the first year period of the year looking at what is it that we are doing. And from a GDP standpoint, from a national account standpoint, we see that we are actually generating $250 million on average in the economy. One of the things that I will tell you is that we were decimated by Maria, but we have recovered fully. So the question is, now that we have completed the recovery stage, how do we grow the economy? And that shortfall is over $425 million that we have to climb to. Now, it may look like a carry-on call. It may look like something that is gross or over our heads. So what we are doing here with the leadership of our ministers, both Minister Defoe, who focus on fisheries, with 2 prongs, where we have the aquaculture. We have around 8 aquaculturists right now, and our intention is to grow the number of individuals that are actually involved in aquaculture. So we can produce tilapia, we can produce prawns, freshwater shrimps. So the intention is to grow that sector. Also, too, we have our CMOS, the mariculture, where we actually grow things along the coastlines.
And this is water as well, eh?
And that is part of our marine space,
Right.
our marine water resources.
Right.
So we intend to utilize our marine resources, or water resources, or ocean space. Traditionally, we call ourselves a small island state, but we want to move ourselves out of that concept and that mind frame and look at ourselves as a large ocean space state rather than a small island state. And what that means is 750 kilometers square is our area of land, but we have 28,000 and more kilometers of ocean space that we call in our exclusive economic zone. And the whole idea is, how can we utilize that to build our economy? So part of the ministry you hear, it is green and blue economy. So part of our initiatives is to see how we can develop the blue economy. Blue economy has around 13 different sectors, which include port and energy, marine energy, and all those things. But for us, our focus is our mariculture, one, but also to look at our deep sea fishing. So we invest in replacing boats, in building our boat capacity to allow the boat builders and the fishermen to actually have a good quality product that they can go out there and fish. We intend to invest in our export to improve the quality of our fish processing establishment so we can export fish. We are also looking at developing a reserve area, which I think Honorable Minister and the Prime Minister will give more information on that after our independence in November. But we intend to utilize all the living marine resources that we have in our sea and to actually turn that into economic benefit for us. On land, we're looking at what does the farmer do? The most important thing for the farmers is to be able to have markets for their products. Without markets, we will continue to remain a small island state. So by looking at import, we have an import strategy where we are focusing right now on white potatoes. We have just opened our white potato season, and the whole intention is that if we can be self-sufficient in the production of white potatoes, that is one. It is number 7 in our large import bill. That is one we can eliminate out of the 14 different commodities we are importing to make the $28 million. And the strategy is to go after one commodity after another commodity so that we can do that. But I'd really like to invite Ms. Loader to discuss the whole issue of the relation between our food and our health, and to really, let's discuss that, because that's one of the ways we'll encourage people to actually produce food and see the need for them to go into producing food, and knowing that even if it's just 1 pound of food that you produce, but when you collectively, as a collective, everybody produces 1 pound, it adds up, and it can help in developing both our economy and our lifestyle.
Yeah. Thanks, Piers. And before Ms. Loader comes in, and the issue of the high levels of NCDs, not only in Dominica but in the Caribbean, that is something that we have to address. I'm glad that the PS mentioned the high import bill. I think it's for the Caribbean, it's like $6 billion. And so part of it is how we develop the strategy to reduce import bill. But Ms. Loader, the issue of food nutrition and how we look at production and the health of our people. And we spoke about the production of food, but how we look at the health of the people, and what is the role of other ministries such as education and Ministry of Health. Take us.
Okay, so I want to first compliment the ministry. In the past years, you have successfully put together a food and nutrition security policy, correct? And also an agriculture policy. And in support of that, I believe forestry also has a policy to support. Nonetheless, I want to stress on the importance of, we speak of food security, and we're relating it to nutrition and the importance of us as persons and being healthy. How do we relate that? I want to look at the process of looking at cause-effect, or even a bottom-up approach, looking at disease prevention. How do you prevent diseases? By taking medicine, that is post. But we're saying here, agriculture assists us in actually preventing diseases, eating the right foods. So that's where our production systems come in, to present to the population and the community the right foods, okay? What are the right foods? And so therefore, I just want to, in simple language, ensure your plate is colorful, okay? Colorful in the sense where you have a lot of colors, antioxidants. So when you see colors, think of antioxidants. When you think of colors, you're thinking of good health. Why? Simply because your plate should not have only one color. I use, for example, dasheen. It's purple or white. Or let's say, for example, yellow, you have only sweet potatoes. Example, or rice. It should be a combination of colors to complement, okay? And probably too, I believe once, in working with Mr. Anselm, we wanted to implement a half plate. Your plate should at least have half vegetables and complement it with other food sources, example, carbohydrates and so forth, fiber and proteins and so forth. But ensure it has a combination of colors. And when you start thinking so simple, it will start changing the way you cook. It will start changing the things you put into your pot. Yes, and the Independence season is an important event, or I should say situation, where we remember our history and we start remembering why we are existing. We are existing because, and I like to bring on Mapampo, for example, who lived 27 years. And she could only do that because she ate well. And I want to call on every Dominican to eat well. I want to call on every farmer to prepare, use the best practices to provide healthy food for our population. I want to call on us as citizens to make the right choices in where we spend our money. We can choose to spend our money buying Conquerors, for example, not to be biased, or we can choose potatoes, as you mentioned, and make our own wedges. We can choose to, of course, we are here to drink water, or we can choose to drink a drink that is filled up with how much grams of sugar. for example. So I'm saying it's a choice. And you asked with regards to how we prevent NCDs. I'm saying here we prevent it by eating right. We can prevent, of course, by educating ourselves, educating our peers. And the relationship between agriculture and, of course, health, it's a very important one. And we start with of course, our policies, our ministries, sitting together and putting together the best programs to influence change. We sit by actually educating our populace, that is our community, in presenting, of course, the right programs. So again, we try to create a theory of change for our programs. We try to create a theory of change, of course, for the attitudes of our people. So we change their minds, their mentalities. We change the processes that they use to eat or to find food. So I am just I am charging every Dominican to change the way they eat. I'm charging every Dominican to identify the best solution for good health. And it first starts with us as agriculturists in providing them with the right food. But also, they're supporting us by making the right choice.
Consumer choices.
Yes.
So I want to just open the discussion. Do you think that we need more policies, more legislation in terms of unhealthy foods? That is one question. Do you think we need to look at our dietary guidelines at the schools? So it's open for anyone that wants to take this question. The first one would be, do we need stricter policies? I know we have policies on importation of drinks, sweet drinks, and beverages. Do we need stricter rules and laws? Is our dietary guidelines helping the population? PS or anybody can?
We can go.
Yes, go. Yeah.
Well, there's always two sides to a story. So some would tell you yes, you need stricter and more stringent legislation. And my personal view would be, I think we need a greater educational drive. These things in my mind are mindset issues, and I'm not sure legislation can set a mindset. What I mean by that is we need to get people to understand what is it Ms. Loda was just saying. That if I take the abattoir for instance, we have our farmers, it's two-pronged. Because if our farmers who grow in chicks to supply for slaughter at the abattoir, they would, one, be provided, when we assist them, we would, one, be sustaining them and sustaining the economy, that's one. Two, would be guaranteed for safer, better, fresher meat. Say, for example, chicken parts. That is to say, when a farmer grows this chicken locally, he supplies it to the abattoir. You go to the supermarket and you purchase meat from the abattoir. You're sustaining the economy and you guarantee yourself a safer and healthier chicken. Because we all know how long the imported things take in storage alone. And I mean, for what it will, if we know extended life in storage would mean decreased freshness and decrease in healthy food. So that's one. Two, even in the forestry officer mentioned it, when we go to the schools, we start them from young, training them and explaining to them why is it important to grow your own food. You will have better practices and you will have healthier food, because I don't want to sound biased. For instance, I've had an apple in my fridge for about 4 months now, and it is hard and still. And in my personal view,
You say 4 months?
yes, because I don't want to give it to my daughter. And to me, I find something is wrong with it. It cannot be natural that an apple stay in 4 months. The point I try to make is, even if we get these things and we were told apple is healthy, but what is added to it can affect us. So the point is, instead of eating an apple, eat an orange. So, but before in closing,
Yeah.
the point there would be, you cannot write a law saying, don't eat apple, eat orange. You have to now educate and instill in the minds of our people that it is healthier to eat an orange than an apple, because the apple is laced with lots of chemicals to keep it sturdy and fresh looking for a longer period.
So we haven't really bring the issue of food to the children at school. We never really discuss food. If you look at the food and nutrition classes, they basically a set of recipes and SBAs, and it's not the cuisine of Dominica or crabbacks and all these various aspects, or manikou and all the wildlife that we have. There's a relationship between our food and our education, our health, especially our mental health. I think the best recommendation is that we have to sit down, look at our school curriculum and really change it. When the kids go to school, they should be learning what is going on in the cuisine and in the garden of Dominica. When I was studying agriculture science, I was studying about sugarcane. The only time I saw sugarcane was in Makoshri in my age time. And Makoshri, most people growing up now, the young kids won't even hear and know about Makoshri was a big sugarcane plantation. But the whole idea is that when you look at the textbooks used in our schools, it's not bringing home and talking about the ordinary farmer that you meet down the street. So we're losing on two fronts. One, we're not encouraging our young people to get excited about agriculture. And two, we're really not appreciating and showing some sort of generous gratitude towards the farmers who is toiling and the fishermen who is going after the trade day after day after day in agriculture. So we have two sets of generations moving, one growing older, cannot do farming, and one getting a little older, but not interested in farming. And so what is happening is that the quantity of food that we produce is declining. The quantity of healthy food that people is consuming is declining because people don't have a connection between the food they eat, the farms, and the fishing areas that we are actually producing our food if there is no connection. And it's our responsibility to bring those connections together.
Yeah, thanks for that. So the message that I'm summarizing is that the consumers, you have choices, but you have to make the right choice in terms of how my good friend Chance articulated. The choice that you make will help the economy of the country. It will improve the livelihoods of the farmers, and as a whole, so they will be healthy. So for me, the onus is on the consumers to make that choice. When you make that choice, that choice of eating local and buying local and supporting the agriculture industry, you help the country on a whole.
But the irony of it, right, is that we said we're going to generate $700 million.
Right.
When we keep looking at it, and every day we stay in the ministry and we look at it, we have not been able to capture the food that we ourselves consume here. So
Right.
it comes from the farm, it goes to our kitchen, or it goes to the neighbor's kitchen, but it is produced.
Yeah.
Those that are exported usually are not fully captured. So a lot of food goes to Guadeloupe on the small boats, etc., and we don't really capture those different things. So we want to be able to capture what is going on in our production systems to make sure that we may be producing over $500,000 in agricultural sector as we speak, but we don't have the data to capture that.
So data is important, and how we capture the data. But Ms. Loda, the household and the parents, they have a fundamental role to play on even the purse, the shop, whatever they go and purchase. So part of the public awareness is I wanted to speak to us about the household and the school, the responsibility of the schools. And we also mentioned the public awareness. I think the campaign, and the point I want to make is that when I look at the billions of dollars Coca-Cola spend on advertising, and even cigarettes, these unhealthy foods, they spend billions of dollars advertising unhealthy foods. And the healthy foods, we don't promote them. I think we have to go on a promotion drive, awareness of promoting healthy foods. And I think that is basically what is missing. So, Ms. Lula, take us to basically speak to us about the responsibility of a household and also the schools.
Okay. I want to highlight there are different types of families within our society. And there's been an evolution of the type of families that are existing within our space. Nonetheless, we still have a responsibility to ensure that our families are healthy and safe. We as agriculturists, we cannot control, we cannot force individuals to do the right thing, but we can guide. And I think that's what we are here to do, is to guide them in eating the right foods. We can guide them, or I should say, guide them in presenting the right environment for them to choose the right food, okay? I want to highlight that, and I want to stress on disease prevention, not post, meaning that we're trying to find a cure, but presenting the environment that you prevent your family from getting sick by eating the right foods. So I'll use an example. We speak of hypertension, diabetes, for example. And we ask ourselves, okay, what is the basis or the origin of these respective diseases? And one of our great health professionals will say to you, it is related to, of course, concentrations of salt or concentration of sugars in our diet. And of course, that has an impact on our health. Now, we as agriculturists, we have a goal. Our role is to provide foods so that they can eat. But the system, when I say the system, I'm speaking to the Ministry of Health, I'm speaking to our Ministry of Education. They have to prepare the right programs to support us in educating the household, particularly our women, our men that head this household. Our men have a great responsibility to guide the food that their family eats. I know we women, we prepare, but our men, we have to remember that our men has a responsibility to guide and present rules and regulations within that household. So I'm calling on our men to strengthen that family bond by presenting, of course, rules that will encourage good living. Yes? Ensure that your family eats well. And I am stressing on that because I think too that we put a lot of stress on the female because she cooks it. But what about you as a man? Yes? We need you alive.
Ms. Lula, we have a lot of independent women now, you know.
Well, it's not independent women. In the ministry, like all the administrative staff, they are, apart from our two ministers, the SEO, myself, the rest of the staff are basically women. And they come to work early in the morning, but they're still responsible for providing food for their household. So how do you find the balance, or what advice do you give them that in the morning it's about trying to be on time for work, trying to provide food, healthy food for the family at the same time? There's a struggle, and we need to find solutions to that.
Well, the question of affordability as well, and one can our families afford healthy foods? So that's another discussion. And yeah, right. So Mr. Esprit spoke about the producing the food at a low cost. So yes, the food may be available. We can access the food, but is it affordable? We're talking about vegetables that are sold And then again, the imported ones are very expensive, the broccolis and the cauliflower, and that is why the ministry program is to support the farmers in producing these things in terms of protected agriculture, introducing new technology. But I'm not the panelist. I will leave that to to my panelists to speak about. But Shanks, I want us to it's okay to call you Shanks because the whole population know you are that. Yes. So I want you to speak to the investment that is required and the investment that the government has done in bringing water and more in. But I want you to speak to the irrigation part of it.
Well, earlier on, I mentioned some money is being spent in Salisbury. We're looking at other areas where we can do irrigation. But in the ministry, you will be aware too that we're now looking into hydroponics, for instance. And that really is a technology that uses water to produce food. You know, and the people in fisheries too looking at aquaponics as well. We actually, maybe 2 years ago, we tried aquaponics in the ministry because we have a water system underneath the ministry where we grow fishes. And we actually grew lettuce there. I don't know what became of the project eventually. The consultant left and so on. But it was to demonstrate to the people how we can grow food without soilless. And you talk about protective agriculture, so you speak of things like greenhouses and so on. And we also mentioned the cost of producing foods as opposed to the other foods cheaper. One thing comes to mind when we say that is scale. And the economists, which I don't know nothing about, use a phrase called, which goes like this, economy of scales. If, for instance, we were to have our consumers willing to buy our local produce, so every household goes out to the market to look for fresh lettuce. We're just taking lettuce for an example. And the farmers would see, people start coming and ask for lettuce in the market. So these three major lettuce farmers now start producing more, and more farmers go into lettuce production because there's a bigger demand for lettuce. Eventually, the supply of the seeds, for instance, would be able to bring in bigger amounts of seeds, bringing down the cost of shipping, because I think the way shipping operates is whatever, and so even if you bring 10 pounds of lettuce seeds as opposed to 20 pounds, you will pay the same amount. So I say not to say, once we start, our mindset start causing us to consume more locally, it would start bringing down the cost of production and the cost of the food itself. Because if you, as a farmer, if you're producing 20 pounds and you want $5 a pound, you will make $100. But if the demand increases and you start producing 100 pounds, you understand mentally that you can sell it $3 because you're selling 300 pounds.
But we don't observe that happening.
No, but it all boils down to the same issue of mindset. And our people now starting to consume what we produce locally. And more we consume, more we bring down the cost of it. Going back to investments and so on, we've assisted farmers significantly in the ministry with greenhouses, protective agriculture. We've assisted even under the it's a long name, maybe I can't pronounce that one. Livelihood, which we just normally term the World Bank funded project of the ministry. We've assisted scores of farmers with hoses, drippers, sprinklers, and so all geared at moving farmers into understanding how important water is to production of food and to increase production and so on. So we spent $64 million so far under that project. 45 plus the 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So part of it is introducing technology as well. It's not only using a hose,
No.
but introducing technology in terms
that's
of
critical, right?
Yeah.
The the weather conditions in Dominica varies.
Yes,
We
sir.
see the past 3 days we had excessive, it's like a drought, like a mini drought in the heart of October, where we expect a lot of rainfall. And so it just takes a few hours for a farmer to actually lose all his crop. And so it is important for us as the ministry to look at those issues and respond with our program is supposed to be response to farmers' issues and to protect our ability to produce food. Because yes, this farmer may have the capacity to produce all the lettuce that is required for his little market, but then a simple 1 day of drought can just wipe him out because there's no water available to the plants or on the farm. And these are the investments or these are the interventions I think can go a long way in actually stabilizing our production base and making sure we have a steady supply of food. The other issue too, Ryan, is the access to the food. So you find that the various areas will be very good at producing certain foods. So Mount Prosper with all the vegetables, Girodale with a lot of white potatoes. When you go to the other areas or the other regions, agricultural regions, you may find because of climatic or weather conditions, they are able to produce it, but they will not be successful economically simply because there's no protection for the food, there's no access to water, there's no access to the farms, etc. So we have what you call a hopscotch situation where our production goes up and goes down, and so it creates the basis for which food is imported in Dominica, because you have to keep the food, you have to keep people food secure, and you cannot risk. Look at what happened in Maria. We lose our production base. What do? So we're not saying we're going to eliminate importation of food, but we have to be able to reach to a point where we can reduce the food import bill by increasing our production of food locally, be consistent, but also to ensure that we actually making an economy out of it so that farmers will be able to have a livelihood and they themselves will eat more of that food.
Yeah, but I want to go to our good friend Nigel. In terms of agroforestry, part of it is for us to plant more tree crops and fruit trees. I want to go and I want to focus on fruits because it gives water. I don't want to go too much from the field. What is the forestry department in terms of its agroforestry drive in replanting? It's not only the traditional forest trees, but
Yeah, that's exactly, I have you mentioned that. And just to answer Ms. Loda, where you mentioned the role of the men, the role of the men in the family. And just a few minutes ago, Mr. Shanks with a very good example where an apple has been on the fridge for almost 4 months. We do not know what they put in it, but that's what we are trying to encourage here in forestry. Back then, we had lots more agroforestries, much more trees in general. So right now, we're trying to see how we can encourage the population to eat the local, such as the oranges, the soursop, the mangoes. Not just eating, but now to protect the land through windbreaks. So recently we have been trying to encourage the land and the farmers to the importance of the windbreaks, and also not just the windbreaks, but also the buffer zones, which help prevent erosion, flood, and of course to help purify the water, which some farmers, which is natural, we put pesticides and insecticides. So whenever the rain fall and it's being drained, at least the trees itself can trap, can filter those diseases, these pesticides, which may impact our water. And also now, we may not have we may not have a rule per se on the private land owners, but recently we observed that some private landowners have been damming their river, which may affect the aqualife, the life in the river, and of course, lower down may cause flooding. So we're just trying to encourage the private landowners to adhere with the planning and land and service practices, and of course, agriculture and forestry practices.
And Ryan, we have a program for rehabilitating our agricultural stations. So we have the 5 C's. You also mentioned,
Yes.
you mentioned the last C, but the 4 C's are usually focus on cocoa, coffee, coconuts. We just established the coconut nursery. One of the main drives that Honorable Minister had when he came into the ministry was to see how we can go back on this tree crop planting across the country. And so we're making sure that we invest in the propagation centers, and there's a major rehabilitation program going on under the World Bank funded emergency agricultural livelihood and climate resilience project. And I'm stressing climate resilience because we are going on agricultural sustainability and also on agricultural resilience. These 2 fronts are very important, that we lay foundation to make sure that we can sustain our production. So we hopefully next year will open out the tissue culture facility in 1 Mile and develop a mechanism in which we can have a consistent supply of planting materials. That will also address the issue of disease. We have a lot of pest and disease proliferation now in our agriculture, with the yam rust disease that has taken out our yams and all these things, but we know that with clean planting materials and a ready supply of planting materials to the farmers, that can address some of those issues. So at all fronts, we're trying to address the challenges in food production in Dominica, but at the end of the day, it all takes the consumers, our people, to have an appreciation for what the farmers and the fishers are doing, and to ensure that we continue to eat the food that we grow locally, because it is fresh, it is wholesome, and it is available. And if we continue to encourage that, I think that we can address 2 issues while we build our economy, but at the same time we can reduce the cost of health cost on our population.
To add to that?
Yes, while Pierce spoke about, of course, our citizens and the need for action, the topic of national consciousness came to mind. And I'm saying, how do you and I and our families, what's our role in identifying Dominica as a nature isle, the nature island? And what steps are we going to take to ensure that we are the nature island? And of course, when we start addressing those things, we start asking ourselves that, is access available? That is the food, good food, quality food? Is it available? Is utilization, are we preparing it properly? And we're asking, of course, is the education programs in place to ensure that information meets the right individuals, maybe the woman or the man or the child that has to consume the food? And we start asking ourselves these questions, and we start asking ourselves, okay, what is missing? What are the gaps? Correct? And so therefore, we asking, and I'm asking all of us to change the way we see ourselves. We start changing our mindset, we start changing the way we think, and of course, we will change the results that we want. So we want low levels of NCDs, we start eating the right foods. We start exercising a little more. We start preparing the right production systems. And we did not mention waste management. We start ensuring that our waste is incorporated. So for example, many times we look at the linear production systems, But I'm applauding our producers to look at the circular production systems where we incorporate our waste into our production systems.
Right. Our time is limited, but I just want to go quickly to Mr. Esprit. In terms of preservation and conservation of water, what are the best practices you can recommend?
All night the forestry office have been mentioning them.
Yeah.
Is really to replant the trees in the catchment areas. To, well, he said it, and I can repeat. And when you plant the trees in the catchment areas, most importantly, what it does, it helps to keep the storage. So when your land is not bare and exposed, you have limited low evaporation. And so it stabilizes the water. It also filters the water.
Quality.
I remember we used to feed, sell water to the cruise ships. And one captain on the Princess, said to me, the first reason we come to Dominica is to get water, because your water is like champagne. He said that, he actually said that to me. And without any treatment, you know, in the big countries, you have major treatment plants where they add chemicals to the water to cause all the impurities to come together, coagulation. We don't need that in some areas in Dominica. We test our water in some areas and it is less than 0.5 NTUs. NTUs is the unit that you measure turbidity. Turbidity is really what we say in Dominica, how dirty the water is. You know, and only the forest can do that for us. When we plant the trees, it allows the water to filter through the process, and then it comes out almost pure. You know, so that is how important it is to maintain our water catchment areas, conservation, and I mentioned earlier, it sounds I'm small and tiny, but it's very important. You taking a bath, you soap in. During that period, you close the tap. You brushing your teeth whilst your toothbrush is in your mouth, you close the tap. You washing the plate during the period where you using the fiber to pass the foam onto the plate, you turn off the tap.
Well, I'm guilty on that one.
No, but this is a serious thing. You washing your vehicle.
Yes.
At the period when you soap in the vehicle, you turn off the tap. Because for us, because we boast of 365 rivers, and everywhere we turn, we see the river, and we think it wouldn't run out. If we continue these simple but bad practices, we will end up depleting our water system. So but it will be a combination that we don't maintain our catchment areas, that is to say, plant trees that have gone. And some of it's not our fault. For instance, when Erica came, it washed away certain entire catchment areas. And then came Maria, and then we know of all the other, up to one of these days, we had a major water event. But it is up to us now to keep or stop cutting them down only when necessary. Because people just cut trees sometimes, and they can't tell you what they're going to do with the tree, because the tree is not really a good, but it's good shade for the catchment area. So it starts from and she said it earlier, from the ridge to the reef, meaning any and everything you do on the land, it goes to the sea and affects the sea. And we never get to speak to the sea and how important it is.
Just going to raise it.
PS mentioned blue economy, but there are many things, recreation and so on, transportation,
services,
and most importantly, food too. The fisherman goes to the sea to fish.
It would be wise to mention the simple action that we take when we on our vehicles and stuff. We just throw, especially the imported packaging material out of the buses, out of our vehicles. We indiscriminately dump, or we don't organize or separate our rubbish, and all this goes down into the marine space, and it's going to affect our bottom area and all the other areas that we have our seagrass growing, our seabeds where rich marine resources. So we have to be conscious of this.
If Mr. Moderator, if my last thing to say tonight would be for people to understand that every single thing that happens, and Ms. Loda mentioned it doesn't happen linearly. It's a cycle. So, for instance, the water is a water cycle. So if you take off any part of the process, you realize where you can start losing it. If you remove where it starts, the catchment, if you deplete the catchment area, then you deplete the water supply.
Thanks for that. We only have some few minutes, so what I will do, I will allow Nigel to give his closing remarks briefly, and then we will, yes. So Nigel?
Yeah, I'd like to just thank you for this lovely session. It's really helped us and remind us where we are and where we need to be. And I'd like to just remind the general public is the hunting and fishing, like hunting and fishing season. Well, hunting and fishing season, but right now we are not fishing. That's just to show you the impact Hurricane Maria had on our river and the importance of the water. But those that hunting, please come to get your license.
You'll have to pay for that advertisement. Ms. Loda. But thank you very much, Nigel, and we appreciate Ms. Loda, your closing remark.
I'd like to thank you, of course, for inviting me here. But more so, I want to charge every Dominican to eat healthy. I want to charge every Dominican to eat a plate with a lot of colors, that is, ensuring that their foods are rich and of quality. I'm charging every Dominican to support local, eat local, and support our farmers, our fishers in eating the right foods.
Yes?
I just want to say thank you. This week is World Foods Day, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to be grateful to our fishers, our farmers, our agro-processors, and all our agricultural professionals across Dominica. Hopefully on Friday we'll be celebrating a few of them, but in conscious that there are many more who is out there that deserve to be applauded for their hard work for years. And it is life, food is our life. Just as we know water is a major component of our food and of our life, but it is important that we give thanks to God, and we are grateful for the many individuals who have engaged themselves in producing food for us across Dominica. I want to take publicly to say thank you to all of them, our administrators, thank you to our minister here and the leadership that he has provided, along with Honorable Julian Defoe, who is on his way actually to Rome, to the head of the food organization, to participate internationally on a world stage in an event just like we are having here locally tonight. So we want to congratulate them. Also want to give thanks to Honorable Yakia Joseph, who, as the three of them, has provided very good leadership and strong leadership to the ministry. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having a productive year.
Thank you, PS, and thank you to the panelists. I also want to thank the Honorable Minister for joining us and other technical officials, Kian Stevenson, Jason Bruno, and the others that are there. I want to thank the media, Kyrie FM, DBS, and GIS, and our listening and viewing public. As the film suggests, water is life, water is food, water is essential. The actions that we take is our future. So we really need to put the necessary strategies and programs in place to ensure that everyone eats a healthy diet and we leave no one behind. So thank you and have a blessed evening. Thanks, everyone. Well, we'll have triple snacks. Snacks is provided. Yeah. So. Yes. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Ms. Goda. I appreciate it. At short notice, you're very